Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're so pleased that you're here with us today, and we're excited to share with you the information for technical assistance for the Higher Education Multicultural Scholars Program for this fiscal year 2023. So let's go ahead. Just a few logistics here in the beginning. We do want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded. So please keep your microphone on mute, we ask, during the presentation. If you happen to need some technical support for Zoom, please call the number on your screen, 1-888-799-0125, and select option number 2. In addition, if you have questions during the webinar, please feel free to use the chat box and get them written down while they're fresh in your mind, and we will definitely come back to them toward the end of the session. In addition, the slides and recording from this conference will be posted at our NIFA Multicultural Scholars Program Technical Assistance webinar page here at this address. And maybe Donaven can put that into the chat box as well, so that everyone can see it and take note of it. We also want to let everyone know that in accordance with federal civil rights law and also USDA NIFA civil rights regulations and policies, we do not tolerate discrimination of any kind, and USDA is an equal opportunity provider, employer, and lender. If for some reason you feel you need to file a discrimination complaint, please see the details here on your screen and how to file a complaint. You can write a letter, or you can call the number on your screen, or you can send it by email at program.intake@usda.gov. Good afternoon once again. I'm Michelle Shelsky-Santos, current National Program Leader for the Multicultural Scholars Program from the Institute of Youth, Family, and Community. And my email address is on the screen. I joined NIFA in June of last year, so I'm coming upon a year, and I continue to learn. So it's been a great experience and wonderful working with Donaven, who I will ask to present himself at this moment too. Donaven?
Thank you, Michelle. Hello, everyone. My name is Donaven McLaurin, and I'm a program specialist at NIFA and the Institute of Youth, Family, and Community. And we're happy to have you all here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. We work within the Division of Community and Education, and our focus is the undergraduate portfolio of programs. So the topic we will cover today is our Higher Education Multicultural Scholars Program. We will give a brief overview of the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, NIFA, a brief overview of the program. We will give some details of the request for applications, the RFA, talk a little bit about the proposal evaluation process, and give you a little additional information and some resources that may be of use for you. Let's begin with our overview. The National Institute of Food and Agriculture is the extramural science funding agency within USDA's Research, Education, and Economics Mission Area, otherwise known as REE. NIFA invests in and supports initiatives that ensure the long-term viability of agriculture, and we do this by providing funding and strategic leadership for programs that ensure groundbreaking discoveries in agricultural-related sciences and technologies to reach the people who can put them into practice and really make a difference. Our programs at NIFA cover a wide variety of topics, as you can see here. Everything from advanced technologies and nanotechnologies to animals, animal husbandry and breeding, production, business, and economy, natural resources, including forestry, water and air, education, which is where this program falls, minority serving institutions, teaching and learning and workforce development, also environment with focuses on climate change and other important priorities, farming and ranching, human sciences, food science, food and nutrition security, as well as international programs and plants with crop production, pest management, and so forth. Our program under education is the Higher Education Multicultural Scholars Program. And the purpose of this program is to provide scholarships to support recruiting, engaging, retaining, mentoring, and training committed multicultural scholars, which will result in their gaining a baccalaureate degree within food and agricultural sciences in a variety of disciplines, or a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine degree. This program is different from many others because you can fund tuition for students, and for many other grant programs that is not allowed. So this ability to really support students is a very important purpose of this grant program. So the goals and objectives of these scholarships are to encourage outstanding students from groups that are particularly and historically underrepresented and underserved, so that they may pursue and complete baccalaureate degrees in food and agricultural sciences or achieve their doctorate of veterinary medicine degree that will lead to a diverse and highly skilled workforce. And who are those underrepresented or underserved groups? They are those whose representation among food and agricultural professionals is disproportionately less than their proportion in the general population. And that's in reference to standard statistical documents or case-by-case national survey data. And this data may come from the U.S. Department of Education, Digest of Educational Statistics, or one of the databases that we help maintain, the Food and Agricultural Education Information System. And if you are unfamiliar with this database, we exhort you to click on that link, and perhaps Donaven can share that in the chat so that you can view this database to gain a greater understanding of statistics on students and faculty from different programs in food and agriculture across different institutions. In terms of the eligibility criteria for the Multicultural Scholars Program, the applicants must be institutions that offer or confer a bachelor's degree in one or more disciplines in the food and agricultural sciences, or a DVM degree. So the following are eligible to apply: land-grant institutions, colleges and universities with significant minority enrollments, other colleges and universities, and institutes or research foundations that are maintained by an eligible college or university. Institutions that have not previously applied are especially encouraged to do so, so that we can be sure to give opportunities to many different students across many different universities, institutions, and regions. So with this eligibility criteria, individuals would not be eligible to apply themselves, and institutions that do not offer a bachelor's degree program, if it's only an associate's degree, they would not be able to apply themselves either as the primary applicant. In terms of the submission and award limitations, There is no limit to the number of applications that an eligible institution may submit. However, an institution may only receive support of up to a maximum of $250,000 for one award cycle. So, and shortly you will see two different options for grant types. And basically that would be one award per institution. The anticipated number of awards is 5 per annum. And if by chance there is a project director who has received an MSP award in the last 5 years, they may also apply under some special circumstances. The proposal must differ substantially in scope and objectives from your previously funded project. So if you have had an award in the last 5 years, please make sure that this new proposal differs substantially in scope and objectives from the previous award. And there will also be the need for a progress report on your first award that we'll come to in a few moments. And just as a note, perhaps you have noticed that in the upper right-hand corner, Donaven has very graciously placed the pages in the RFA where you can reference this information. So later on, you can look at this once again with the 2 documents open. For our project type, it is a single function education project. There is that one project type and 2 grant types. The Multicultural Scholars Program grant, or just MSP with the scholarships, or adding the experiential learning, the special experiential learning, or SEL. So the description of the project type as a single function education project is focusing on the development of skills necessary for entry and mid-level technical employment or for entering graduate programs in the food and agricultural sciences. And single function education projects must be directly aligned with one of the following. The first, increasing the number of graduates with the necessary technical skills for entry-level positions in the food and ag sciences. Number 2, improving the technical competencies needed for the workforce to ensure that U.S. agriculture remains globally competitive. Or 3, enhancing the diversity of the workforce in food and ag sciences. With our 2 grant type descriptions, we'll begin with the MSP grant. This will support MSP scholars through scholarships, and applicants are strongly encouraged to respond to this request for applications with training that will use investments from the USDA NIFA to create innovative frameworks grounded in curricula for undergraduate and/or DVM training with collaborative knowledge and technology transfer components that transcend traditional disciplinary boundaries in ag. 2, establish baccalaureate or DVM degree programs in which scholars can pursue related summer research opportunities, especially at other colleges, universities, industry or federal agencies, nonprofit enterprises, or other learning opportunities and relevant topics. Or offer professional mentoring and undergrad degree programs in food and ag sciences and for DVM degrees. In addition, number 4, increase the number of students from underrepresented or underserved groups who attain baccalaureate and/or doctorate of veterinary medicine degrees with scientific and professional competencies to meet the technologically advanced needs of the 21st century food and ag systems workforce, provide leadership skill opportunities for all projects. And you'll see that's a requirement of your project narrative, that number 5. And develop performance measures for evaluating the overall effectiveness of the undergraduate and/or DVM training that the scholars will receive. This includes assessing expertise with a clear demonstration of pipelining to workforce or further educational training in the identified competencies. The second grant type is the MSP SEL, or the MSP with the additional special experiential learning component. This is optional, so as you've seen by the first grant type, you don't have to include it. But if you do, you could include activities for newly recruited scholars to participate in research projects focused on relevant topics at institutions or organizations other than those of the applicant. These opportunities may be for apprenticeships, internships, or similar participatory learning experiences that may include practicum for DVM students, internships abroad, or externships in the private or public sector. They may be study abroad programs relevant to their majors or other relevant activities that are supplemental to their regular learning. SEL funds may be used only to pay for living expenses, travel expenses, tuition for courses that were not a normal part of their curriculum, and or a cash stipend for SEL supported scholars during their approved experiential learning activities. So with that said, these SEL funds cannot be used just to increase the annual stipend amount for the MSP scholarship, especially if those activities were already a part of the program. So these must be activities that go above and beyond the normal curriculum, that are experiential learning activities that would broaden the students' horizons. Once again, with internships, externships, study abroad programs, or special learning opportunities. And MSP grantees are able to apply and hold one SEL grant during the lifetime of their program. So this basically just kind of reiterates that you may apply for an MSP grant without experiential learning or an MSP grant with experiential learning. And with that said, the applicants cannot request experiential learning funds by themselves. It must be attached to the original MSP SEL application. Okay, so it'll either be an MSP grant or an MSP SEL grant. And you may request any combination of scholarships and experiential learning funds as long as the total does not exceed $250,000, and we'll get a little bit more detailed into that in just a moment. And we do reserve the right to fund fewer scholars than requested in an application or to partially fund SEL requests, all depending on the funds available at the time. In terms of the project duration and total maximum award, an MSP application will be a 5-year project, which may request up to $230,000 maximum, whereas a combined MSP with supervised experiential learning or special experiential learning will be a 5-year project with an additional $20,000 maximum for a total of $250,000 max. In terms of the activities that are fundable, the institution may request up to $9,000 in scholarship support per scholar per year for up to 4 years. And MSP scholarship should be used by the grantee to pay for the following items in the order presented in this precedented order. Tuition and mandatory fees of the MSP scholars, on-campus room and board, off-campus room and board, books and supplies, other aligned broader context activities, and other student educational expenses. Any remaining scholarship funds after all of those have been taken care of will be paid to the grantee, paid by the grantee to the scholar as a stipend according to their standard institutional procedures. So in section E, participant trainee support costs, the scholarship amount would be placed on line 2 under the word stipends. Up to $2,500 per scholar per year for up to 4 years can be included as a cost of education institutional allowance. And this is permitted on this MSP program in lieu of indirect costs, which are not allowed here because the focus is on scholarships. So you are able to claim $2,500 per scholar per year for up to 4 years, once again, as a cost of education institutional allowance. And that institutional allowance should be under other on line 5, and it may be used to support travel for the project director, to attend at least one mandatory NIFA-sponsored project director and beneficiaries meeting during the performance period of the grant, or this cost of education allowance may be used to defray program-related expenses, including but not limited to costs of evaluation of the program, any costs of student mentoring or student retention programs, scholar travel to attend professional meetings or to conduct research, or any laboratory fees or educational expenses like books and supplies or research materials. An institution may elect to apply the allowance also to a scholar's tuition and fees if needed. So here we have a possibility for activities funded. And in terms of the scholarships, the maximum amount is $9,000 per scholar per year. For 5 scholars for 4 years would be $180,000, giving you an idea here of how it may be done. The cost of education allowance, $2,500 per scholar per year. For 5 scholars and over a period of 4 years would be $50,000. And those two added together would be $230,000 for just an MSP award. However, if you choose to add the special or supervised experiential learning activities for $4,000 per scholar for 5 scholars, that would be $20,000 additional dollars for a maximum total of $250,000. For this program, there is no requirement for matching. And so matching resources will not be factored into the review process as part of the evaluation. All right, so I think we've come to a good point here. Donaven is going to take over with some application details and documents. And Donaven, would you like to continue?
Yes, sure thing.
Yes, sure thing.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So now, as Michelle stated, we're going to talk about some of these details of the application. Still, I encourage you to refer back to the RFA for more details regarding the application contents. We will be highlighting some of the major components and highlighting some changes from prior years. First off, let's talk about the mentoring plan. This year, the mentoring plan is to be attached as a separate document. In the past, it was included within the project narrative, but now we are looking for a fully fleshed out mentoring plan, and I'll provide some details of what it should incorporate. So first, the roles and responsibilities of the project director and any co-project directors in managing the mentoring process should be detailed. Also, this mentoring plan should incorporate the training for or the credentials of individuals who will serve as mentors. Mentors may be experienced, mentors coming from academia, industry, or government, or even student peers at various levels who are expected to provide guidance, cultural support, and sense of community with the activities and facilitate the amplification of program-specific perspectives and accomplishments of the mentees. In addition, a description of mentoring activities that may include but are not limited to peer mentoring or layered mentoring, whereby a set of mentees are progressively mentored by others at a higher level in their careers. We ask that you please incorporate these activities in the overall project timeline. Also, the mentoring plan should incorporate a description of processes to ensure reasonable accommodations for program participants with disabilities or challenges with accessing program activities. Scholarship programs should include plans to accommodate scholarship recipients who find it necessary to interrupt their program of study because of health, personal, or other reasonable non-academic and non-disciplinary causes. One thing that I'd like to highlight about the mentoring plan is that if there are different tiers of scholars supported, that there should be separate mentoring plans here. For example, this program supports both students at the baccalaureate level as well as those pursuing a DVM. If you're planning to support both baccalaureate as well as students seeking to acquire or earn a DVM, you should have two separate mentoring plans for those different tiers of students. So this application can be assessed on the funding opportunity page for this program, and the hyperlink is there. I'll put that in the chat soon. The application deadline is 5:00 p.m. Eastern Time, May 15th, 2023, and the application is to be submitted through grants.gov. As mentioned previously, we anticipate funding a maximum of $250,000 per award, so one award per institution. The total amount available for this program is $1,250,000. So we're looking at up to 5 awards. That's what we anticipate. Really important, the program code K, and you want to be sure to make that designation when you're submitting your application on grants.gov. And as we've stated before, there is no limit to the number of proposals that an eligible institution submits. However, we are limited at 1 award per institution up to $250,000. So in continuation, some of those key components of the application include the project summary, also known as an abstract, the project narrative, a bibliography, our reference list, the data management plan, which is also one of those newer requirements. And we'll talk about some of those other documents, but be sure to refer back to that RFA as well as the NIFA grants application guide for more details here. All right, so let's look at the project narrative. The project narrative is up to 20 pages, and this is strictly enforced to ensure an equitable evaluation. The project narrative should be double-spaced using 12-point Times New Roman font, and you are able to use text and figures within this 20-page limit. And please note that your tables can be single-spaced. Within these 20 pages, we ask that you describe the rationale and significance, the approach, the quality of education, evaluation and assessment, institutional support, as well as key personnel. If you are requesting the additional SEL funds, the narrative must include these items as well. The description of the special experiential learning that the scholars will undergo. So that should include the objectives of the program and how it will contribute to the scholars' program of study, timeline, and specific activities and location. Also, we're looking for measurable outcomes and expected student learning and performance outcomes related to the SEL, identification of personnel for the SEL activity, and the nature of support to be provided to ensure success of the scholar's learning experience. Within this, we should also have the rationale for incorporating an SEL into the program. If you are resubmitting an application, you are allowed to provide a response to the previous review. So again, this is only required for resubmitted applications. The project narrative attachment is to include these two components, the one-page response to the previous review, and be sure to title response to previous review as the first page of the attachment. And please note that this one-page response to previous review does not account against the 20-page limit of the project narrative. And if you've held an MSP award within the last 5 years, a progress report is required with this new submission. This progress report can be up to 2 pages, and like the aforementioned, this does not count against your 20-page limit for the project narrative. The progress report, if applicable, should include a comparison of actual accomplishments with the objectives established for the previous award, the reasons established objectives were not met, if applicable, a listing of any graduated MSP scholars, new curricula, or other outputs, the grant number for the award, and lastly, an explanation of how the current proposal differs substantially in scope and objectives from previously funded MSP projects within the last 5 years by the same project director. And here, let's talk about the data management plan. Also one of those newer requirements. Investigators must provide a detailed, and this is up to 2 pages, business and management plan that includes the expected data type, the data format, how the data will be stored and preserved. Also details regarding the data sharing, protection, and public access, and also the roles and responsibilities of those that will be managing the data. Also linked below, you will find some additional information regarding the data management plan, including how that is evaluated. So application submission. NIFA only accepts electronic submissions of applications. And remember, this electronic submission is going through grants.gov. And if you require some assistance, there's a NIFA grants application guide available, and you can access that using that link here in the slide. And really importantly, I'd like to emphasize here that application documents must be in portable document format, PDF, to be accepted by NIFA. And this includes your narrative as well as your budget justification. While grants.gov may allow other formats, NIFA does not. Also, it's important to avoid using third-party PDF builders, as they often present some challenges with the applications. And once your proposal is submitted, it goes through a proposal evaluation process by a panel of peer reviewers selected for their expertise for your specific project. So with this process, proposals are assigned for review by at least 3 reviewers, and as I mentioned, that have the specialized experience in the proposed topic. These reviewers produce individual reviews of each proposal and evaluates their strengths and weaknesses based on the evaluation criteria within the RFA. After this, these reviews are used to begin a panel discussion with other reviewers serving on the peer review panel. And it's through these discussions that peer review panelists come to consensus on the final rating and ranking of proposals. Now, very briefly, I'll mention the evaluation criteria here. For a standard MSP Multicultural Scholars Program grant, we'll be looking to assess and evaluate the quality of education and impact on the food and agricultural sciences, institutional support and management of the project, key personnel and collaborations, evaluation, assessment, and dissemination. If an SCL is also requested, there are some additional criteria that we'll look for, or that our peer reviewers will use to evaluate their submission. The potential for advancing the quality of education, the proposed approach, institutional commitment and resources, also looking at key personnel here, as well as program evaluation and dissemination. And we encourage you to refer back to the RFA, to those pages that you see highlighted there in the top right for more details to what we're looking for with each of these criteria. And the really exciting part here, and the biggest question is, how long does it take? When will we receive a notification? And on average, it takes a competitive program about 3 to 5 months from the proposal date to an award being made to the institution. So this is how it looks. Within the first month to 2 months, the request for applications is released. Proposals, writing and planning is occurring, and then the proposals are due. Within the next 2 to 3 months, the proposal will undergo the peer review panel, and proposal funding notifications will be sent following the peer review panel. And then 1 to 2 months later, the awards are finalized and made. We will keep you updated as much as possible with this process, and we truly appreciate your patience as we undergo these processes. And here I'd like to share some additional information with you, some other resources that you might find useful. So if you're ever curious about previously funded MSP awards, we have a CRIS link, and it links to all of the technical, non-technical reports, progress reports, as well as some publications associated with previously funded projects. And I'm going to put that link in the chat now, so we have that handy. And with these CRIS reports, you will see the approach, you'll see the topics, you'll see their methodologies. It's a really great resource to reference. Next slide, please. Also, if you're curious about upcoming events, we encourage you to look at the NIFA events calendar for upcoming deadlines, meetings, and webinars. Also, the request for applications release calendar is a great resource for planning future submissions for various programs across the agency. And here listed, we have some general grant resources. We have a link to NIFA's funding opportunities, a link to the competitive grants flowchart, which provides some more details about the evaluation process and that timeline, NIFA grant resources, as well as a NIFA policy guide. And although not germane to this program, but there are some resources for indirect cost. And there is a guide for the preparation and submission of NIFA applications via grants.gov. And if you're ever curious about NIFA programs at large and what's been funded, there's a link for all of the CRIS reports. All right, and I'll turn it back to Michelle before we open the floor for more questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Donaven. And we hope that you all have gotten a nice overview of the Higher Education Multicultural Scholars Grants Program, that you are interested in submitting your applications and helping our underserved students gain the knowledge and technical skills necessary to increase the diversity in the food and agricultural sciences workforce. So at this moment, before we open to questions, I would like to take a moment to thank our interpreters who have been working very diligently. Thank you so much to our interpreters. Thank you. And at this moment, we can take some questions. Did you want to take some questions that were from the chat, Donaven? Did you want to maybe pick up some of those questions first?
Sure. There was one question that came in. Is the SEL request included in the 20-page limit for the proposal? And yes, the SEL request should be encompassed within that 20-page limit for the project narrative.
Yes, very good. Any other questions from the chat? Would anybody like to open the mic and ask a question, or write any other questions in the chat box? Or have we covered most of the points, perhaps, that may have been questions?
All right.
I know for me, sometimes, excuse me, Donaven, I think of things like a half hour or an hour later. So please do feel free to write us an email if that might happen, if the questions come up later on, or once you start really digging into the RFA and you have some questions, please feel free to contact myself or Donaven. And I just do want to make a quick note that this, you'll see that my name is spelled correctly on the top line, but I just noticed that I had a typo down here. It's EL, just in case you write the email. So it would be, please follow on the top up here, shellskisantos@usda.gov. Thank you. Anything else? Donaven, please.
Yes, we did have a question. Should we include letters of support or collaboration? If so, how many are allowed?
Oh, wow. Well, there is a place for attachments, I believe, field 12, if I'm not mistaken. But you are allowed, please do include letters of support from all of those who will be important collaborators on your project. Rather than put a maximum amount, we would rather just say, please include the number of letters that you feel are necessary that really show that if you have a significant collaborator, it will give the review panel and us the confidence that they are invested in the project. So I would put more rather than fewer. So if in doubt, include it.
Yes. And also I'll mention on page 19 of the RFA, talks about those collaborative arrangements, which is one of those separate attachments in field 12, and there is no page limit. So you are able to include as many as you'd like. And
that's a great question, though, because it becomes very important during the panel review process, because the panelists really do want to have that confidence that if you say you have 10 different places where students are going to participate in specific activities, that people are really invested in training these students, for example, if it happens to be an SEL experience.
Okay, and I do see a hand raised, and I'm going to configure that to allow you to talk. All right, you are able to ask your question live now.
Okay, great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, Rachel Jones, I'm calling from Oregon State University, and we were wondering, members of the group that will be writing this particular proposal have received MSPs in the past, but none of them are going to be the PI on this grant. Is it still required that we submit a program update or sorry, I forgot the terminology for the
progress report?
Progress report, yes.
Yeah.
If the PI is different, but the PIs from those previously awarded grants are on this new grant. I don't know if I explained that clearly.
That's a good question. It is specifically stated in Donaven, if you have the document open in the RFA, I believe it's only required for the PD. So if a new person who has never submitted a Multicultural Scholars Grant before is going to be the PD, then I don't believe we would hold you to that progress report. You may want to add a few lines, however, in your project narrative that, detail the expertise and the leadership of, the other participants in running a program such as this, and make sure that it's not going to be kind of a repeat program, especially if you're from the same institution.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. Donaven, do you want to add anything to that?
No, that was it. Per the RFA,
Okay.
only the progress report only applies to the same project director, serving as the lead project director.
Great. Any other questions? All right. Well, once again, thank you so much to Debbie and Amber, our ASL interpreters. We're very thankful to have you here with us. Thank you, Donaven, and thank you to all the participants. We are looking forward to receiving your proposals and to getting these students scholarships, once again, to help diversify and increase the opportunities for them to enter the food and agricultural sciences workforce. Thank you once again, and a pleasant afternoon to all of you.